Welcome back to Citizen Sleeper, the final DLC episode, episode Purge, which is quite a dramatic title indeed. I have the Flux data ready to go. We researched that with the help of Peak, so let's send it in. Flux data sent, continue. The cordon. With the data sent, the only thing to do is wait. As you do, you imagine Helene receiving the data, perhaps in the middle of some Havanage Council meeting. You think of her trembling hands as she slips out of the room to read it. Her reaction, you can't predict. You imagine Sol, too, one of his crew finding him in some corner of the Pilgrim Seed, overseeing the modifications that will turn it into an ark. Those sharp eyes scanning the data, looking for a way to proceed. The wait draws out, and to pass the time, you watch the activity beyond the edge of the eye, the scrap shuttles pulling components from the now abandoned cordon, and the supply skiffs making runs between the flotilla ships. It isn't long before you hear the chirping of one of Helene's now familiar drones approaching the viewing platform, and then Helene herself striding into the room. "Where did you get this, Sleeper?" Helene holds up her slate, scrolling with streams of flux data as she enters. "I need to know your source." "Hello to you too." "You didn't bring me here for a reunion, I assume?" Helene smiles a thin smile. "Then you'll forgive me for skipping the pleasantries." She pauses and pushes her hair back, out of her face. "This is a lot to take in. A shadow protocol inside the flux, the system's KAN channel starting up, a total collapse of the eye." She rubs her forehead. "If I bring this to the council, they'll believe you." She laughs. "Do you know what has been happening within Havanage, Sleeper?" She looks away, out at the flotilla. "Since the refugee ships started arriving, things have changed. It's chaos. No one can settle on a single issue. There is a division at every vote. But in the division, only one group prospers, the hardliners, because as each councillor gets tired of the arguments, gets tired of compromise, they become more attracted to the easy answers. The flotilla is to blame. The refugees are opportunists. The eye must be defended." She shakes her head. "And now you're telling me they brought something to the eye that will cause its collapse." The eye should be defended, and they didn't bring it. I should say both of these things, but I'm going to go with the eye should be defended. "But what does that mean, Sleeper?" Helene glares. "You're telling me the threat is intangible, a shadow, a formless protocol. How can we defend ourselves from that?" "But the refugees, they are all too tangible, and that is what will draw the council's focus." She closes her eyes, a hand to her temple. "Did someone say refugees?" Sol clanks into the docking bay, grinning at the situation. "Speak of the devil, and well, here I am." His suit hisses as he settles on his cane. Helene glances between the two of you, uncertain if she's been drawn into some elaborate plan. Sol holds out a hand to her. "Sol," he nods. "I believe we've spoken remotely while the cordon was still up." I'm going to say I sent both of you the data. Sol laughs. "Well, thank you." He raises an eyebrow. "Evidence of our mutual, inevitable destruction is not much of an olive branch, but I'll take it." "I'm not Havanage," Helene blurts out, then corrects herself. "What I mean to say is no one person represents Havanage. That's the idea. I did not support the cordon, and I did not support your quarantine." Sol nods. "Well then." Sol glances at you. "Anyone mind if I get myself up to speed here?" He pauses, but you get the feeling he isn't expecting an answer. 1. The flux events, the very same destabilising waves that collapsed the colonies on the moons of Ember, have reached the station. He holds up a stubby finger. 2. According to data Sleeper provided, these events are acting as a cover for some kind of intrusive protocol which is causing the real damage. A second finger joins the first. 3. This shadow protocol will do the very same thing it did to Ember's song, Step and Half, and quickly. In short, it will shut down everything keeping this place alive. A third finger pops up. 4. And this is my favourite. We have no idea who or what is doing this, and why. Sol's final finger joins the other 3. Is that about the total of it all? I'm going to add there is also another flux event incoming. Of course there is. Sol smiles thinly. Sounds... Helene pauses, searching for words. Intimidating. Helene turns to Sol. "Did you manage to put up any kind of resistance on Ember's hearth?" Sol shakes his head. "That's why we're here. The Pilgrim Seed was the biggest ship to make it out unscathed. He pauses. I suppose we didn't have this data. We didn't know what was eating up the systems. We all thought it was the flux. Helene looks at you, and I imagine you, Sleeper, and whoever helped you uncover this, might be able to figure out a countermeasure? We can try. Helene nods approval. Okay, so that's the start of it. If you'll forgive me, Sol cuts in, part of why I was able to save as many as I could on Ember's half was that I gave up hope early. Sol shifts his weight, his suit hissing. There were endless strategy meets, system reboots, tests and trials, but I just got on with working on the Pilgrim Seed, with getting people on board, so that when the second and third and the rest of the Flux events hit, we were ready to go. So if I can offer you some advice, Miss Not Havanage, it is time to give up on that line of thought you have, that hope, and to start the evacuation now, right this cycle. Sol looks out of the observation deck towards the Pilgrim Seed. I've already started the process of converting the remaining volume of the Pilgrim Seed for human habitation. With Havanage's resources, I dare we say we could finish the job with time to spare. Sol scratches his beard. I know it's hard, and I know it's sudden, but you have to give up hope. We have to run. There will be no heroes here. Just those that keep living and those that don't. Helene listens in silence, making calculations. She looks out at the bulk of the Pilgrim Seed, which, despite all its vastness, is dwarfed by the eye as a whole. Something flickers in her eyes. She opens her mouth to speak. She stops, frozen. Let me think. Helene rubs her temple. I need a moment. Helene paces, and as you watch her you realise how young she is and how lost she is in the systems and protocols she has to navigate. You can almost see the strings and ties that bind her, glinting like webs in the wide space of the observation platform. We can purge the shadow protocol or we can evacuate the eye. I think we should purge it, but then people might die. I don't know. I want to defend the eye. Let's go with that. Helene stops pacing. But with what resources? The data you sent me. This thing is a shadow, uncontrollable, untraceable. Perhaps with the full contingent of the Havanage Systems Department, but that would require hundreds of work orders to be overlooked, maintenance schedules abandoned. She looks away. Getting that through the council would that even be possible? She glances at Sol, who is patiently watching, patiently listening. We have to try. Helene looks at the slate again. I will take this to the council, force them to listen, force them to act. You both jump as someone loudly clears their throat nearby. Your eyes jump to the dark entryway that Helene emerged from just minutes ago. Kemp, hardline Havanage councillor. So Kemp has a goatee beard, short receding hairline, short-sleeved Havanage fatigues, and is a bit on the stocky side, quite big hands. What a cosy little... no, I'll keep using that sort of weird Cockney voice. Let's go with... I'm just going to go for a deep voice. What a cosy little meeting this is. A man steps from the shadows, dressed in the same style of Havanage overalls as Helene. And I must say, that's some very incendiary rhetoric you're using, Councillor Helene. You glance at Helene and her face drops immediately. Kemp, she curses under her breath. Sol shifts his weight on his cane, but otherwise remains still, like a casual observer. Plotting against Havanage with an interloper? He gestures at Sol. Everyone will be so disappointed. Kemp smiles a bright smile. Some of the councillors had such high hopes for our youngest member. His smile drops. I, of course, never let novelty distract me from the importance of experience. Helene stares daggers at Kemp. Enough of this petty shit, Kemp. You need to see this. She holds out her slate with an outstretched arm. The games are over. No more point scoring. No more lobbying. You and your hardliners need to stop. This is something real. Kemp calmly takes the slate and prods the screen, scrolling through the flux data. His face betrays nothing, but you see some complex calculation flickering in his sharp eyes. Kemp lowers the slate slowly and smiles at Helene. And what do you think this shows? Helene frowns. Don't play games. You can read. The flux is a carrier signal for some shadow protocol, most likely corporate in nature. Maybe it's Solheim re-emerging to claim their station. Maybe it's a takeover. But either way, the station is under threat. You're right about that, but the rest? Conjecture. Kemp rubs their chin. What we have is a virus in our systems which emerged precisely when the flotilla arrived. In fact, it times in perfectly with the mysterious event that freed them. So what I see is a hostile cyber warfare attack instigated by dissidents that fled Ember's moons after committing terrorist attacks on their own soil. Kemp's face darkens. That is the order of the facts. Nothing more and nothing less. Facts are we happy to present to the council. Kemp tightens his grip on the slate. Helene laughs. You think that's the only copy of that data, you sanctimonious shit? No, I don't. Kemp smiles. But who do you think they'll listen to, Helene? Especially after I tell everyone about this little clandestine meeting. You couldn't win power by Havanage's systems, by our laws, so you resort to this. Kemp shakes his head. The law is with me, it's as simple as that. He gestures, and out of the shadows 2 Havanage security officers appear. Now, no need for that. Sol suddenly speaks up. His silence had meant Kemp had stopped paying attention to him, but now you notice he has backup of his own. A group of his crew stand at the edges of the room. They are carrying long, boxy guns. You'd never seen anything like them on the eye. Glossy XPR logos glint along their barrels. These are Esch's guns. Kemp freezes, and the officers hesitate, holding back in the doorway. Be careful there, outsiders. Outsider, he stutters. Kill me and Havanage will never forget. Sol waves a hand at him. No one's killing anyone, so let's calm down. Sol scratches his beard. But I am going to have to ask you to leave. Helene glances at him and gives her a gentle nod. And you'll leave your colleague here with me. He raises an eyebrow. We haven't finished our conversation. Kemp laughs and shakes his head. You are finished, Helene. The council will never allow you back after this. Then he turns and walks out of the observation deck, taking his officers with him. You all pause to catch your breath. Helene looks ready to collapse. Sol flexes inside his suit, nodding at his crew to check that Kemp has fully retreated. Sol wrenches part of his suit back into place, grimacing. Your friends leave a lot to be desired. He shoots a glance at Helene. Seems like support for the evacuation might be a hard ask. Helene doesn't respond. She stares out at the Pilgrim Seed once more, trying to process what's in front of her. She sighs and turns back to you both. I won't call for an evacuation. She looks at Sol. Maybe that is a fatal mistake, but I can't do it. You have to. Helene ignores you. But, she pauses, I won't block it either. If people want to leave, Havanage will let them. That is what I will propose to the council. She sighs. If they let me speak. You have to do more. Easier said than done, sleeper. She sighs. She nods at you and Sol and turns to leave. Sol is quiet. He scratches at his beard. Good luck, he offers to the departing Helene, but she does not respond. He leans on his cane. I'll be honest with you, sleeper. None of this changes anything for me. The Pilgrim Seed will be going in a handful of cycles, whether Havanage wants it or not. How long? Sol grimaces. Honestly, as soon as we're ready. I'm not eager to run down the clock to the last cycle. Sol puts a hand on your shoulder. There's a berth for you, and for any you can gather, sleeper. That much I owe you. And Helene? I wouldn't hold out much hope of her coming around, sleeper. She's too tied up in all this. It won't let her leave if she wants to. Oh, I'll say that again. She's too tied up in all this. It won't let her leave even if she wants to. He eyes you. Hell, I'd say the same about you, but you have a habit of proving me wrong. My crew will take me from here, don't you worry. Sol straightens up. Oh, and thank you, Sleeper, for sending the data. I appreciate the extra info, and I'll see if it can help us shore up the Pilgrim Seed against any future Flux events. If we had you back on Ember's hearth. He pauses, suddenly losing his appetite for discussing the past. Sol sighs. Of course, we're going to need all the help we can get. If you can spare some time, come to the Pilgrim Seed, help me get it ready, bring others. There's a future to be earned here, cycle by cycle. We will be leaving as soon as we're able. If you want to help us get there faster, well, you'd be welcome. He meets your eye. Sol grimaces. Well, he pauses, just don't keep me waiting, and he limps off towards his waiting crew. You pause for a moment to let your thoughts catch up. Peak will want to hear about all this. They should be your first port of call. Okay, we have a drive. Evacuate the eye. The flotilla is leaving with anyone who wishes to join them, but they'll need help if they want to leave before the flux hits. Okay. So Pilgrim prep. The Pilgrim seed will take the majority of the evacuees off the eye, but is there enough time to settle them all? Okay, these are all pretty dangerous, but I've got +2 to pretty much everything. Cool. Just use these up on this, I think. I'll chance my 3 in there. Groovy. Let's re-roll these. Oh, excellent. That's that nearly done. As you stop to rest in one of the Pilgrim Seed's cavernous bays, hopping up to sit on a supply crate, you hear a now familiar voice behind you. Sleeper, glad you're here. Sol's suit hisses as he clanks up towards you. I knew you'd help us out. We surely appreciate everything you do for us. Building up to something? Sol shoots you a sideways look. See, that's what I like about you, Sleeper. Straight to the point, no messing. He smiles a sly smile. Sol settles beside you, flinching a little but making himself comfortable on the crate. Seems the word got out. This way, or that. He nods towards the welders a little way off, and one of them wearing shipyard overalls. We've had people flowing in from the eye, looking for a place. In truth, it's more than I thought, Sol sighs, which means more mouths to feed, more bodies to house, more people to protect. That's good, right? Good for those that can get a place, maybe. Sol frowns. But none of this is good for anyone. We're supposed to stay here, not keep running. Sol waves away the thought. Don't listen to me. He gives you a sideways glance. Just a tired old man. He stretches. I have something to ask, though. I'm already helping. What is it? Something new. I'm going to go for something new. Sol shakes his head. Not so much. Old matters, mostly. With all these evacuees, well, we need a change in plan, he shrugs. Pilgrim Seed can't do it alone. We need the others to help out. We can carry them, house them, but that's all. Now, you settled down the folks from Ember's Step and they sent us supplies grown in those dust houses of theirs. If we could get more... He nods to himself. And then the Song crews. He rubs his chin. What we need from them is scouting and security. We don't need that docking access of theirs, but with some careful scavenging, they could be our fleet. These folks, they know you, Sleeper. You earned their trust already. He put a hand on your shoulder. I sent my requests out and they seem to be complying, but I need you to get out there. I need you out there making sure the work gets done. Time is our greatest enemy now. Sol stares out into the distance. I need you out there speeding things up. Of course, why not? I'll solve everyone's problems. Sol nods. Alright then. He climbs off the crate, his suit hissing as he does. Think of it this way. Either way, you won't have to deal with me much longer. He smiles his uneven smile. Unless, of course, you're planning to come along from the trip. I'm staying. Sol nods. I understand. Sol waves a hand and starts off towards the bay's entrance, the crackling sound of the welding quickly covering up his clanking suit. You watch the workers, the shipyard contractor chatting among them, already looking like he belongs. You push the thoughts of escape, of home, and of the future to the back of your mind and get up. There's always more to do. You better head to the other ships in the flotilla to see what can be done. Okay, so we've still got this to do, which we'll probably get sorted tomorrow. And then there's Aki to talk to and Peter. So I think we'll go talk to Aki and Peter, but first we're going to talk to Peak, see what he's got to say for himself. As you enter the climbing briar, you immediately have to jump aside, as Esh, lugging a massive crate across the cargo bay, pushes past you, grunting an apology as she does. Gonna grunt back. Esh doesn't look back. As you turn back to the bay, Peak pushes past too. Sorry, Sleeper, just a second. Peak rushes to catch up with Esh. Put that down, please, Esh. But she doesn't respond to their urging. We can't leave, not yet. Peak puts a hand on her shoulder. Please, I'm the only one here who can... The crate drops, the sound of its impact echoing around the bay like thunder. Can do what, Peak? Her eyes are burning with anger. Save this place? Are you still that naive? We're running, Peak. We're running because this thing cannot be stopped. It couldn't be stopped at XPR, our home. Why would we stay to stop it here? Because we can, Esh. We can give these people a chance. Peak pleads with her. Like they gave the refugees a chance? Esh shakes her head. No, Peak, this is not on us. We barely made it out of XPR. I worked for years to escape, and you want to throw it all away? I left everything behind, my mother, my friends, to take you out of that place. She clenches her jaw. She turns and slams her hand into the crate, breathing hard. We go. That's the end of it. Peak turns away. You feel unsure what to do, but you know now is not the time for outside arguments. This is between them. Peak crosses the bay back towards you. I'm sorry you had to see that, Sleeper. They sigh. Let's talk upstairs. Peak leads you to the entry ladder, taking you up out of the bay and into the habitation level of the ship. You follow them through the tight corridors, noticing the handwritten notes, the clutter, the repairs, the signs of a home. Here, sit. Peak gestures to the broad mess table with its curved couches, and you slide in on one side. Peak sits opposite. They brush their hair out of their eyes and take a deep breath. So, how did it go? What did they say? I've been waiting all cycle. Let's tell him first about the evacuation. Peak nods slowly as you tell them about Sol's plan to equip the Pilgrim Siege to take as many refugees as they can from the Eye. You admit you don't know how long you have before he leaves. An evacuation? Peak shakes their head. It's insane. Sol surely knows this can't work. Peak looks down. He just wants to keep it running, to hold on to what he has. I can't blame him. He meets your eye. What did Helene say? Let's tell them about Kemp. Peak looks increasingly troubled as you tell them about the hardline counsellor Kemp's sudden appearance. Damn, then Helene's going to have problems of her own to deal with. Peak shakes their head. Looks like we won't be able to count on anything from Havanage. They pause. What stopped Kemp from arresting her? Tell them about the guns? Peak rolls their eyes. Of course, those are the guns Esh managed to smuggle through to the refugees. The ones she didn't tell us about? Peak sighs. Another thing that's on us. What's on us? Esh is standing quietly in the doorway, listening. You don't know how long she's been there for. Peak looks up at her with tired eyes. Sleeper found the weapons you smuggled from XPR. Esh freezes. She glances between you and Peak, as if this might be some sort of elaborate joke. The flotilla used them? Esh moves out of the doorway and enters the room. What happened? Peak interrupts. Be thankful that they didn't. They used them as a threat, that is all. Good. Esh folds her arms. You get the feeling that she knows Peak will not approve. Peak goes to speak, then decides not to take the bait. They glance at you. I'm sure you've heard enough of us arguing this cycle, Sleeper. Peak shoots a look at Esh. But our introduction of those weapons into the equation are just another reason why we cannot simply run away. Esh looks away, but says nothing. She surely knows they cannot absolve themselves of responsibility here, so what is motivating her? You realise that she still might be trying to protect us, Peak, even from themselves. I don't know why I got so stuck on that sentence there. Suddenly a shrill beeping fills the room, and Peak pulls out their slate to silence it. But as they do, they freeze, their finger hovering above the screen, the beeping continuing its insistent pulse. What? Peak doesn't seem to hear you. They blink with glazed eyes at the slate. Then they let out a long exhale and tap the screen. The bleeping shuts off, leaving a ringing silence behind. Esh frowns at Peak. Planning to explain? 12 cycles. Peak looks vacantly up at you both. 12 cycles until the next flux event. They shake their head. I've been using the arrays on the Briar to look towards the centre of the system, to approximately where the KAN channel should be. Just this moment they detected a signal from the inner system. Given the distance and pattern of the previous flux events, we have 12 cycles before it reaches the Eye. The silence in the room is deafening. 12 cycles, that's it. before a second wave hits, and this place. Peak interrupts your thoughts. We start now. That's the end of it. Peak stands up to face Esh. You want to take the briar and run, Esh? That's on you, but I won't do it. They take a deep breath. I'll be here, Sleeper, for every cycle it takes, trying to find a solution. I'll need your help. Their eyes meet yours, and you see a wild desperation flickering there. We will find something. The sooner we have a plan, the better. If it takes us 12 cycles to fix this thing, it'll be too late. Peak's eyes flash with determination. They reach for a slate and pass it to you, so we can keep in touch. You pocket the thin handheld terminal. And Esh... Peak starts, but she is gone, storming down the corridors of the ship on a path to who knows where. You know from experience that it is impossible to outrun your fears, but you get a sense that Esh will try anyway. Peak rubs their red eyes, staring after Esh. Maybe I'll take a moment before we start. They smile weakly, tears of exhaustion gathering in their eyes. See you back here soon, okay? And you slip from the room into the corridor, Peak's quiet sobs somehow carrying through the ship behind you as you leave. Alright, new drive. Protect the eye. So I've got to evacuate and protect. I mean, I'm more inclined to protect, which means I've invested a lot into this one, so I might just finish this one off. And then maybe go back to these two afterwards. I knew you'd come. Aki greets you as you outside the dust house, her eyes bright as always. You are very welcome here, as always. Good to see you, Aki. Aki smiles. And you, Sleeper. Aki puts a hand on your arm. Walk with me. And she guides you past the dust houses. You look inside and see other members of the crew working in the orange dust, planting and tending to the steppe ecosystem. We are to be the suppliers for the evacuees. I'm sure you have heard. We will put the dust houses to use. She leads you past a dust house where the dust is less, the orange glow not as bright, the air a little more clean. We are adapting, slowly, but we are adapting. We have to produce food, clothes, necessary things for the journey ahead. She smiles. The plants of steppe are once again sustaining a population, and that makes me proud. Aki stops at a half-empty dust house, scoured of its sand. It is being filled with mulch. We brought this from the Greenway. She stares at the green and brown, a strange sight, even to you, now that you're used to the amber dust of steppe. I admit, it is hard work for us. We are not familiar with these plants. Can you help us? I will do my best. Thank you. She nods solemnly. I know that the eye is suffering, that it is at risk. I know what it's like. It's okay. I wish I had a lesson to share with you from our loss on steppe. She shakes her head, but for the moment I cannot see what that might be. She gathers herself. If it gives you meaning, the work here is steady and worthwhile, but if you do not have time, she smiles a weak smile, I will not blame you. Hold on to your memories, but not too tightly, she pauses. Sadness will not sustain you. She falls silent, and you both watch the work in the dust house for a while. You can already see a greening fringe of moss on the mulch in the dust house. The first signs of a new life. Will you soon be like the people of steppe, leaving behind a home? Or will you be stubborn and hold your ground, despite what it might mean? You wait a little longer with Aki, the moment a welcome suspension in time, a rare moment in this rush towards an end. You glance at Aki, and she puts a hand on your shoulder in solidarity. After a short while, Aki sighs. It is good to see you, Sleeper. Perhaps we will see each other again before we depart. She walks away, fingertips brushing against the glass of the dust house windows. Aki turns back for a moment, as if she wants to say something, then thinks better of it and turns away. Okay, so we've got some jobs here. Harvest, automation, dust house tending. So dust house tending. To be used on the flotilla's outward trip, the dust houses will need careful tending, especially those being adapted to Greenway plants. Dust house efficiency could be massively improved with an automated harvesting system, but the steppe techs need some help. Greening steppe. The dust houses now have a new function to feed the evacuees on their journey to the starboard belt. That means many changes. Cool. So I don't know if we're going to fit that in if we're going to rescue the eye. I probably should have spoken to Peak before I did all the work on the Pilgrim Seed. Let's see what Peter's got to say. Docking axis. The docking axis is in chaos when you arrive. The staccato burst of welding torches, the shouts of crews gathering, the rapid flow of supplies and kit from dock to dock. You can tell already that news of the flotilla's imminent departure has reached this place before you. Come to join the Exodus, sleeper? Peter approaches you from one of the working crews, a smile on his face, and a lightness in his step you haven't seen before. I'm going to say, are you enjoying this? Peter shrugs. Refitting our ship, building systems, improvising solutions. That's what half of us live for. Are you really surprised? Aren't you afraid? You forget that every person here has fled their home once before. We wake up afraid. At least now we have something to be getting on with. Peter eyes you. I suppose you are here on Sol's orders again? He winks at you. Nothing Ember's heart like to do more than ordering people around. You guessed it. Well, Sol has it lucky anyway. His request for us to dismantle the Axis and be the vanguard for the flotilla's onward journey to the Starward Belt aligns perfectly with our plans. What plans? To leave this damned place, of course. We've been prepping ever since the cordon collapsed. If we can build our escape and make the Hearth ships think we are complying with their orders at the same time, then it is 2 in 1 for us. Peter shakes his head. Those idiots will never see it coming. You're leaving the flotilla? We are our own flotilla, sleeper. Peter looks away at the busy Axis. We aren't going to tie ourselves to heart and step any longer. Why would we? To help them. Peter scoffs. They are taking on evacuees from the Eye. That's what I heard. So how about they help themselves before they ask us to make up for their bad decisions? Peter looks down. Look, nothing against you or yours, sleeper, but we have to get out from under the shadow of Step and Song, and this is the time. Peter grimaces. We won't let the flux catch us again. Not a chance. And for the first time, you see fear in his eyes. Want to help us make that leap? Grab a torch, talk to a crew. You're welcome to it. Peter sniffs. Every person here is free to prove themselves. I'll say I'll help when I can. Peter nods. Just a stop on the road, sleeper. I'm afraid that's all this was. Peter glances out past the docking axis, through the outer windows to the stars beyond. A lot of space out there for those willing to take it. He looks you in the eye. I hope you'll be around before we go, but if not, he smiles, stay strong. And with that, Peter thumps you on the shoulder and heads back to his crew, with a purpose, a direction, visible in every step of his rapid stride. Okay, so what's the jobs for these guys then? Dock dismantling. Okay, so they're playing along basically. So I'm inclined to help with the evacuation, but I kind of want to understand what I need to do to protect the Eye. Devise a strategy. Terminal Flux. A desperate plan. Okay, so I could potentially get this done. I could potentially get this done in 1 day. It's got +2 on it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab some dinner. I've got a ton of money, so I'm just going to buy it here. Now, I can germinate spores, but I feel like I'm not going to need to harvest any mushrooms or anything because I've got a ton of stabilizer. I've got loads of scrap. I can't even see myself needing this stabilizer at all, which is handy dandy. So that's that. Let's go to the nearest bed and then we'll do a scrap repair and hopefully we'll get some good rolls. So let's end cycle, and we are on the final countdown now. Terminal Flux. The next Flux event is coming and it can't be stopped. The sooner your preparations are complete, the better the outcome. Ooh. Okay, that's 1 cycle down. Yeah, it would have been nice to spend some of those dice on Peak's plan, but oh dear. Pilgrim prep. Okay, so let's spend this one on there. That should get us that one done. Okay, that's the Pilgrim seed ready to go. They just keep coming. Perhaps the Flux event scared enough people that they really believe the Eye will collapse. Perhaps they're sick of Havanage, of the Council's infighting and the hardliners. Or perhaps they just want to take a chance at some new future, a place that is anywhere but here. Whatever it is, the evacuees don't stop. They come on the flotilla's shuttles, on their own ships, however they can. You've seen so many faces pass that they are almost meaningless now. A parade of features that seem both familiar and distant. You've been helping people, lifting bags, bringing in supplies, directing them to the berths that you helped build. Some of them recoil from your touch, still unfamiliar with sleepers. Others treat you with pity, some with hate, snatching back their bags and storming off. Still you help, still you carry boxes and bags, nothing can stop you. You don't look for Sol, you know he's busy just like you, trying to make this thing work, trying to fit as many people as will come onto the Pilgrim seed. You know you'll see him before all this is over. You keep working, but there's something in the back of your mind, something eating away at you. You try to push it to the back of your thoughts, but it keeps coming back. The Eye is over. That's the thought, that the Eye, even if the Flux doesn't get it, is on its way out. How can it survive when these floods of people are leaving it behind? It's a thought that troubles you, because it makes you question why you've held on here so long, in a place that seems so temporary for so many people. Are you just a stubborn idiot, someone who didn't get the message? Or are you strong, committed for lasting the storm, for seeing the collapse coming and facing it head on? Because there's something you are sure of now. This place, like all places, is temporary. And as each face passes you, each family packs up and gets on board the Pilgrim seed, it feels ever more temporary, ever more fragile. Which means it either desperately needs protecting, or it desperately needs to be left behind. The choice is yours. Okay, so these are just closing off. Let's just see how much work it's going to take to get this stuff done. So these are 2 greening step. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as long as everything goes perfectly, that's going to take 6 dice to get that one done. So that's over a day. And this is the same. So that's 12 dice. So that's 2.5 days of perfect dice rolls, which I think I can do. But let's do Peak's plan first. It's actually quite quick. So we'll do this 4. It's funny, it's like it says it's 12, but it's actually 11 because the final one everything kicks off. Pop this one down. And let's spend the 6 as well. But I think this won't be it. I think there's going to be more to do once he's devised the strategy. And that's the thing then, how much is that going to eat up, you know? Okay. Peak beckons you over to the wide mess table where they've set up a terminal. The hours of bleary-eyed work have left you both drained, and Peak looks ready to collapse. You slide onto the curved couch beside them, something dark and malevolent filling their screens like an oil stain. The Shadow Protocol. I'm sick of looking at this thing. Look again. Peak's eyes seem to glitter in the screen light. This isn't what you think, Sleeper. Not by a long shot. You look again at the screen, leaning in close to the dark, curved shape to see its texture. You see whirls and currents like a river, a dark flow unlike the Shadow Protocol's dark tangle. You know exactly what this is. You have swum in this river, almost drowned in its shifting flow. It is the Gardener's Chorus, the dark cloud which blankets the Greenway's networks. The bioorganic morass of a malfunctioning protocol grown vast and strange. The Gardener. Peak glances at you. How do you... They pause. Have you met them? I have. Peak shakes their head. Incredible. Then perhaps you won't be surprised by what I'm about to propose. Peak meets your eye. Everything I've tried to do to contain the Shadow Protocol has been a failure. It slips through any containment, absorbs any countermeasure. That, unfortunately, is an unavoidable fact. And yet, the eye still spins. The Shadow Protocol is being slowed, partially contained. It has spread across the station as we've seen, but in reduced pockets, in fragments. So we've started to look outside of our test cases, outside of these fragments we've been poking and prodding in our little lab. Peak smiles. And look what I found. Peak taps a key on their terminal and you realise the screen is showing a recording of the data flow inside the eye's networks, sampled from hundreds of points around the greenway. You watch as a subtle shift occurs at the edge of the flowing dark curve that blankets the greenway. Something spreading like an ink stain. Something darker than black it bleeds across. The shadow protocol. Now watch. Peak eagerly points at the screen. You see something strange, a fizzing at the edge of the shadow, a sparking, and then it's gone. And beneath, for a moment, a millisecond, you see into the networks of the greenway. You are reminded of an image you had forgotten, of pulling a plant from its pot and seeing a bone-white root ball where you expected to see dark soil. The white connections writhe like worms, and then it is gone, the dark flow closing up as quickly as it opened. What did I just see? Hope, Peak sighs, wrapped up in something terrible. You think back to your meeting with the gardener, to that sense of something old and world and inhuman to its core. Peak excitedly starts to explain. This is the only chance we have, the only countermeasure we've seen. In the moment it opened, I detected something, a centralized intelligence with the local ID Gardener. This protocol, this system, whatever it is, can protect its network from the shadow protocol. But if it stays in the greenway, the eye will still fall. The station systems are too exposed, too spread across the hub, the shipyards, the spokes. Peak glances away. The only way is to break it open, to spread the entity's network, access it, expand it. Oh, there should be a comma there. Okay. The only way is to break it open, to spread the entity's network, access it, expand it somehow. Peak pauses. You want to let the gardener out? Peak stands up and walks away a little. They lean in against the countertop, their head hanging so low that their long hair touches the work surface. You hear them breathing deeply. I don't know, Sleeper. They lift their head. I really don't know. It's a chance. Maybe. They shake their head. You know as well as Peak that this is it. You know it because over the past cycles you've run every simulation, every possibility you could think of, and still come up with nothing. You've stared at a hole in your screen and dreamt of that black shadow creeping in at the edges of your vision. Peak recognises the look in your eyes, the potent cocktail of resignation and anger. Let's say we do this, Peak begins, eyeing you carefully. What do we need? They begin to answer their own question, thinking out loud. I suppose we need to do two things. Find a way to limit or control the gardener's spread, and then reconnect the greenway. Peak starts pacing. The idea is coming quickly now. Controlling the spread means preparing the station. Limit the gardener's network to key systems. We don't want to take in everything. We just needed to protect the station's core functionality. Then we need to reconnect the greenway, hook it back up to the main line of the network. Those systems we prepared, they should connect. And Gardener will spread along the paths we prepared. At least that's my theory, Pete grimaces. But if we don't prepare correctly, the Gardener might not spread, or it might spread to everything. Pete closes their eyes. And after that, things might get worse. It can't be worse than a total collapse. Don't say it, Sleeper. Peak sits back at the terminal and brings up a map of the eye. Rotational control at the hub, life support at the free spoke, power routing at the Havanad shipyards. They stab at the map with each one, marking them in red. Then there's the central core. As I understand it, it's somewhere on the rim. I need to find it. They push their hair out of their face. We seed the Gardener in all of these places. Peak pauses. But how are we going to do that? Transplant the greenway? Peak smiles. Of course, the Gardener needs plants to care for. That is what their protocol dictates. They must have been part of the farming management systems of the Eye, back when Solheim built it. We seed greenway plants into those systems, and Gardener will seek them out, protect them. Peak stares at the map of the Eye. It's a wild idea, but it could work. But, they pause, we'll need a way into those systems. Havanaj have most of them locked down for safety purposes. We can't just walk in. Haha, I know a guy. It's Feng! Peak raises an eyebrow. Someone in the Havanaj systems team? You nod. After everything he dragged you through, you feel like Feng still owes you. Time to pay him a visit. Okay, well, Peak looks at you sideways. I guess we should pay him a visit. Lead the way. You both leave the ship, carried forward by the excitement of the plan and an eagerness to not look at the details too closely. You push any lingering questions to the back of your mind. Time to head to Feng's Bay. Alright, so we've got 11, basically 10 cycles to solve this problem and then maybe do the evacuation work as well. I think we can do it. So let's go talk to Feng first then. There's my mushrooms growing. I'm not going to do the re-roll on that dice yet, just in case I need to hack something. And it specifically calls for a 2. Let's work our way down here. There he is, Feng's Bay. Find Feng. Feng isn't in their bay, and no one in the offices upstairs seems to know where they are. Your lone clue is an out to lunch note. A difficult man. Feng is both never where they say they'll be and always late. While this is no surprise, now is not the time for wasting time. Okay. Got a 6, that's good. I'll get us towards finding him a little bit. Sweet. Let's grab some food here. Cook these Girola caps. Cool. And then we will rest here. Let's do a scrap repair. Keep our condition right up. And then end cycle. It feels like this endgame section is kind of designed to eat up all your dice. I've just got a funny feeling about it. Right, quite a nice spread of dice rolls there. So let's drop a couple of the good ones in just to speed through this. Yeah, we should be able to find where Feng is now. You dig around Feng's Bay and find some notes that mention the flux. What's he working on? That's it, no more wasting time. Peak sighs and pulls out their slate. They crack open a box on the side of the bay shutter and wire the slate into what's inside. Maybe your friend has a Havanage passcard or something inside. Peak shoots you a glance. Something they won't mind if we borrow. Let's wait. Peak doesn't look up. We haven't got time to wait, they sigh. Coming here was a mistake. After a few tense moments, the shutter jerks and begins grinding open. The noise makes you jump. Let's get inside. Peak glances around. Quickly. You slip into the dark of the bay, punctuated by the blinking lights of Feng's piles of servers, somehow even more disordered than before. Peak makes a beeline for the desk at the centre, scattered with tools and components. They flick on a lamp and stare at the mess. Are you sure this person can help us? They're a little disordered. You're interrupted by the sound of footsteps from the entrance. Someone has come in behind you. Peak freezes. I could swear I closed this shutter when I left. Feng leans on a stack of servers near the entrance. Must be getting forgetful. He grins at you. Feng! The very same. Feng smiles. Feng raises an eyebrow. Thought you'd come rob an old friend. Is that the plan? We need your help. Feng nods. You're here about the flux. Peak nods and is suddenly giving Feng their full attention. Feng smiles, pleased with himself. I guessed as much. I saw changes in the old system architectures almost immediately. Some of them have been running since the first days of the station, and so when I saw new patterns, shifts in logic, I knew something must have happened. These past cycles I've been doing a total inventory of the core systems, from the hub to the rim. He grins. I've surprised myself, to be honest. I didn't think I had it in me. Peak seems unamused. And what did you find? Feng sighs. That's the thing. There's something all twisted up in the systems and protocols, but every time I look at it, it disappears. Peak finishes. Feng turns to you. Do they always do that? Peak ignores him. It's a shadow protocol. It masks itself somehow, bedding into the gaps between the systems, in the negative space. It is slowly filling every system in the station, slowly taking over, and we need to stop it. You need to grant us access to all the core systems of the station, rotational control, life support. Feng holds up a hand. Whoa, 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 slow down there. I don't even know your name. Feng shakes his head. And you're asking for the keys to the castle? Can't be done. Feng, it's me. Feng pauses and glances between both of you. How long have you known this one, Sleeper? I know I owe you, but I also know that you trust too easily. Sorry to say it. Pete cuts in. I can vouch for myself. I came to the Eye on the run from the XPR colony Hawthorne, with the intent to keep running until we hit the starboard belt. But since I've been here, I've done everything in my power to protect this place. I've helped to stabilise the refugee flotilla, to investigate the flux, to identify and make a plan to purge the shadow protocol from the station's systems. Meanwhile, Havanage has done everything to stop and slow these actions. I've proven myself as a friend to the people of this station, not the administration, many times over, and I will not be doubted by someone who wears the badge of this corrupt administration. Peake fixes Feng with a hard look. Feng looks down at their Havanage jacket and shrugs. This is all I have in my wardrobe. Look, I have no love for the council either, friend, but someone has to run this place, and that someone is me. Feng walks over to the workbench where you are both standing and digs a slate out of the pile of tools. You want to prove yourself? Show me. Pete grabs the slate, and you recognise the tangled form of a fluxed node on the screen. Pete immediately starts tapping away at it, its tendrils unwinding, and the shadow, just slightly delayed, slipping out of sight. Feng leans in. Interesting, he says to himself. Before long, Pete has unfolded the system completely, and it lies splayed out like an unwound ball of string. At the centre, with nowhere left to hide, is the dark stain of the shadow protocol, visible for all to see. What now? Feng asks, his eyes fixed on the screen. How do you kill it? Let Pete answer. There's one entity on the station that we've seen purging the shadow, the Gardener. Feng frowns. Who's that? Some Greenway hacker? Pete glances at you. More like an avatar of the Greenway itself. You explain the Gardener to Feng, the feeling of descending into the flowing river of consciousness. You explain the networked chorus, the non-human collective of voices. You tell him of the farming AI's offer to you, to be networked into the chorus, dissolved in its flow. Then you explain that by granting it access to the Eye's major networks, you hope to reinforce them. Feng is silent for a moment. And you want to let this thing out? He shakes his head. That's the kind of stupid plan I'd dream up. He pauses. I like it. He smiles. This place is rammed with weird protocols and forgotten intelligences anyway. What's one more ghost in the machine? We try to limit it, of course, Pete explains. That's why we want your help to access the Eye's major systems, to seed some of the Gardener's spores into them, to draw the Gardener's focus to those places. Feng whistles. So the way we save the Eye is by growing mushrooms in all the server stacks. He glances at you. Sleeper, congratulations. You found someone weirder than you. Pete goes to argue, but Feng holds up a hand. In it is an All Systems Havanage pass card with his picture on it. Take it before I change my mind. Thank you. Don't mention it. Feng gives you a look. In all honesty, Sleeper, I was on my way back here to start tearing this place down. The Shadow Protocol had me spooked. So if you're telling me you have figured out a way to fight it, a way we might fight it, he looks at Peake. No matter how crazy, then I'm glad to help. He smiles a tight smile. Come with us. No, Sleeper, he looks away. I have to keep on with my work here. Strengthen those systems, back up the data. The worst comes to the worst, I'll need to rebuild. I won't let this place die. The last pieces of my parents are here, among the data. Goodbye, Feng. Feng embraces you firmly. Stay safe, Sleeper. You take the card and leave the bay with Peake. Once you're outside, they stop you. We should split up. Peake looks worried. We've wasted enough time as it is. Head to the facilities in the hub, the free spoke in the far side of the shipyard. Seed the Gardener there. I'm going to go find the core control center that's somewhere on the rim. They hold up their slate. I'll send you a message on your slate when I have something. Good luck. They squeeze your shoulder and you exchange fearful looks. You know deep down that Peake isn't sure this will work, but they have decided to act, to move with confidence, and for that confidence you are very thankful. Alright, cool. Let's grab some dinner. and go find what we're doing with Peak. Did I buy all the scrap here? No, I didn't. I'm going to get a bunch more. Just stop me having to use my stabilizers. I might finish with all 3 stabilizers still. Okay. So let's go down to the Havana shipyards first. Yep, there's something going on here. Seed power routing. Implanting greenway spores into the system here should bait the gardener into extending their protection to this vital system. Okay. Oh, okay, so it's just 1 set of spores per system. That's pretty good. Let's find the next one. I'll just go back in there and check there isn't something else I need to do. No, that is it. Alright, let's go find the next system. So we don't need to do the greenway, but we've got life support here. Implanting spores from the greenway into the system's life support system feels like madness. Is this really the solution? Who knows, maybe. Now we need to go get more spores, so we'll go over to the greenway and grab those. Make sure I remember to put them in the right place. Let's use our 4 up. 1. Oh, well, I think I only need 1, unless it's going to make me put them, you know, somewhere else. So I think the next one he mentioned was the hub. So let's go up here. Yep, there's 1. Plant the spores in the computer. Alright. The eye. As you leave, the slate Peak gave you chirps insistently. You check and see a message. Found a possible entry to the core facility in the low end. Meet me there, ASAP, Peak. A blinking marker gives their position as on the free spoke side of the main block. Better head to the low end. Alright, let's head to the low end. Whee! There he is. You arrive at the coordinates given by Peak's slate, a run-down but active corner of the low end, where a short glass-roofed alley turns off from one of the main thoroughfares. You wait in the mouth of the alley, leaning against the wall and watching the street life go by. Children hop across grids scratched into metal floor plates, playing games of their own devising, while older residents sit and talk or play tavla. It's hard to believe that all this is a threat. It seems so concrete, so real. How can some intangible protocol erase all this? As you are watching, a voice calls out to you from one of the tavla tables set up along the way. Castor. You move a little closer and spot the sitting player who is calling to you. They're sitting at a small table, tavla pieces and board ready in front of them, smiling at you. Please, if you don't mind. He stands and half beckons, half nudges you over to the table. My partner has not arrived for our usual game. Take our place. He smiles at you broadly over the table. I am Castor. Okay, I can play for a moment. His grin widens. Thank you, I appreciate it. Finding a good partner is so hard these days. Something in his manner compels you to stay, to sit forward, to watch as he makes a careful move with the pieces in front of him. He moves with a slow and purposeful manner, and it slows your mind too, bringing your focus to him, the board, and little else. Almost immediately, Castor begins the game. Everyone on the eye knows how to play tavla, the methodical movement of the counters across their triangular points, a ready fit for the rhythm of life on the ramshackle space station. Most games begin in the same way, with each player moving with independence, focused only on achieving their optimal early game setup. But there is a moment in each game where it becomes necessary to notice the other player, to anticipate the crossing of the counters across the board, a point of contact when routine becomes negotiation, and negotiation becomes conflict. As this moment arrives, this subtle shift in the texture of the interaction, Castor begins to speak. I find myself surprised by you, Sleeper. He looks over his glasses at you. You will have to forgive me. I've been curious about you. A sleeper on the station. It is a matter of interest to me. He smiles warmly. I've been watching you. He laughs nervously. What I mean, of course, is that I've been waiting to play you. I've been waiting for this game because it is how I get to know people. He smiles. I play them. And as I play, he nods, I notice things. The way you conduct yourself, for example, suggests an anxious refrain, a defensive, protective quality. But in your Tafla game, he pauses to move a counter, I see only risk. Risk is of course necessary to play Tavla, to move a piece is to expose it, but it should be done with calculation, with proper analysis. Then if the piece is taken, caster moves the counter, taking one of yours with a practiced swap, placing it beside the board. It is already accounted for. But you move forward with abandon, as if risk was just a secondary effect of action, a consequence, and not its primary guide. He gestures for you to take your turn. A cause. I play my way. Is this a commentary on how I played the game, I wonder? He smiles. Indeed, indeed. That is all I seek. You move your piece. I'd actually like to play this game, I think, if it would be good. This locks you into being reactive, if you don't mind me saying so. You are responding, which means you are being led. He leans back to consider the board. This place, it mirrors you, Sleeper. It is also reactive. It was born from a crisis, the collapse of Solheim, and ever since it has been reacting without any central guiding principle. No analysis, no calculation. Just look at our refugee crisis, for example. It is all reaction, all risk-taking, and little risk calculation. At first I found the chaos enlivening, especially when trying to track its outcomes. But now I find it exhausting. He laughs. It always amuses me that this place is literally spun from the rim. Below this very stack of habitation blocks is the most important control facility on the Eye. Spun from the rim. He laughs again. What better metaphor could you find for disorder? His face drops. But why am I telling you that? That facility is precisely why you are here. He smiles, an unsettlingly warm smile. You feel a shiver through your body, as if something has changed in the air. What is this? No words come out of your mouth. You feel removed from yourself, watching from behind frosted glass. Your eyes dart side to side. Inertia sets in. Castor is still smiling. The risk you are planning to take here, Sleeper, is not yours to take. Castor's tone is unshifted. He speaks as if this is still some casual conversation between passing acquaintances. You are leaping towards a chaotic outcome with no respect for risk. You see, calculating outcomes, that's my speciality. That's why I'm here. I was hired as a conduit for risk, as a collector of data that might pertain to its arrival. He removes his glasses to clean them, and you see something flicker across their surface, a shimmering stream of characters. Oh dear, who is this guy? This system, this station, is already theirs. Solheim's collapse meant a corporate fire sale. Assets changed hands. My employers, Senetstat, bought out the entire system, and for the past decades have been its one valid owner. He polishes his glasses diligently. But to possess this system, the H1 system, he pauses, Helion to you, well, that is a matter of risk, of how much force, how much cost, how much conflict a clearance would take. He replaces his glasses. That risk must be calculated against the favourable outcome. In short, how much is this place worth to us? For a long time the answer was nothing. H1 could offer nothing that would warrant the risk. But the markets change, the demands shift, and Senetstat, we analyse, we follow, we respond. He puts his glasses back on his face. H1 is about to become the most important system in this part of the galaxy. He glances around. The lone KAN channel operating within range of 7 or so newly surveyed resource-rich systems. The frontier town that feeds the gold rush, so to speak. So here we are, re-evaluating the risk, reclaiming our property, starting up the KAN channel and clearing the way for what comes next. He sits back, looking at the board. He gestures. Your move. You will kill thousands. You manage to force out the words. Castor looks a little surprised. I am an analyst, Sleeper. I will do nothing. He shakes his head. Senetstat, as a corporate body, will take the required actions. Of course, I do not need to explain myself to you, but in the role as an analyst, in my calculations, I see great promise in you, in your ability to enter systems, to shift them around to your will. Not every sleeper has this capacity. I assume you know that. He smiles. It truly is a wonderful happenstance of SNRP's technology. I imagine even they are not fully aware of it. He takes his move, claiming another of your pieces, and as you watch, you realise the inevitability of his victory. Well, yeah, because he keeps taking moves without waiting for me to do mine. I will make you an offer. To come willingly or come by force. This station will collapse, we can be sure of that, but your ability to work with data, well, for an analyst, that's very intriguing. He pauses to push his glasses up his nose. Very intriguing indeed. He glances around. Come with me as a collaborator or as a prisoner. Consider the risk. On one hand, almost certain death, on the other, a possible future. Analyst or not, you must see it. Speak now, sleeper. The game is forfeit. You must see that. He holds out a hand. You are of value. You are needed. You feel a slight release in the inertia that grips you, enough to allow you to speak, to respond. You realise that you're already in Castor's hands. You cannot move from this place if you wanted. So he got like a jamming signal, kind of jamming us up. Oh, it's Peak. Sleeper. You hear the familiar voice above the crowds. Sleeper, I'm here. You're unable to turn your head to see Peak, but you notice Castor's eyes following them as they come up from behind you. Then you see Castor's eyes glance down towards his hands, concealed beneath the table. Sleeper! Peak comes around the front of you and waves a hand in your face. We're supposed to be meeting, remember? They glance at Castor. Sorry, am I interrupting something? You cannot speak. Castor shoots Peak a wide smile. Hello, you must be a friend of Sleeper. You watch one of his hands lift close to his body, some dark shape concealed in it, a weapon. You try to scream, to shout, but Castor's attention remains partially on you, and while it does, you can do nothing. Peak glances at your static form. What's happening here, Sleeper? They put a hand on your shoulder. Are you okay? As Peak stares into your eyes, you see Castor behind, his hand lifting, the dark object unfolding, and in the split moment it does, you feel his attention shifting to Peak, shifting away from you. As you do, you feel the inertia lifting, and you know this is the only moment you will have to act. I think I'm going to shove, because if I scream, it might just freeze him in place. So let's scream. Let's shove. You lurch forward wildly, like a sprung trap. Your head strikes Peak's chest, and then carries them back into Castor. Somewhere, some digital screech is echoing through the walkway. They tumble together, and the object in Castor's hand skitters across the floor. You realise the screech is you. You get to your feet, grab Peak, and run. You run as hard as you can, the scream chasing you down the walkway as you shove through the residence, Peak dragged behind. You run from the cold grip of whatever power Castor had over you, the signals that locked you into this body of yours, that broke the connections, and crawled up your spine. Eventually you stop, both you and Peak collapsing, heaving, breathing into the cold metal floor. When they're able to speak, Peak asks you to explain and tell them everything Castor told you about SenatStat. And you tell them everything Castor told you about SenatStat, about their claim on the Helion system, their reactivation of the KAN channel, the Helion system's growing importance. It flows out of you in desperate gulps, unable to believe your own mouth as you hear these words coming back to you. All you feel is the need to push back against the cold hand on your shoulder, the vast cold eye that has turned to look at this system, the ghost limbs of corporate control that are extending their reach. Peak is quiet for a long time. Then they speak. We have to finish this, Sleeper. They meet your eye. We have to complete the seeding of the systems. We have to set Gardner free. You're right. If the choice is between Gardner and these people, I'll choose Gardner every time. Their eyes are cold and steely. I would choose anything over them. You stand together. The final control facility is here. I found it. Peak looks at you grimly. I can take you as soon as you're ready. Time's almost up. This is the only shot you'll have. Nice. Okay. So we've got the facility here. This is definitely kind of in contrast with the helping the flotilla out. So let's drop a 5 in there. Cool. This one's got some danger, so I could lose some condition, but I've got lots of scrap parts, so I'm willing to take the risk. As he said, I am quite a risky... I'm not risk averse in my playing of this game, apparently. So let's go to our house in the low end. Let's feed the stray cat. Scrap repair. And then we'll end cycle there. Alright. So this is just a choice of like which one you use, because they seem to be exactly the same. Alright, let's put this one in the +2. Oh, lost a bit of energy, that's fine. Now let's re-roll. Cool, and I got 5. Perfect. I'll make sure I eat or get some energy somehow before we carry on. Okay, so we've cracked the facility. The facility Peak has led you to is decaying, derelict, but they promise the core is still active. You just have to find it. You find an old Solheim map terminal and manage to boot it back up. A skeletal map of the facility unfolds before you. You've discovered a path to the core of the facility. Time to seed Gardener's final spores. Okay, so we need to put spores in here. Sleeper, here. Peak calls to you from across the flickering corridor. An elevator to the core. They smile. This is it. This has been a long set of it's been a long set of cycles hunting for a path through the derelict layers of old Solheim offices and workshops, but finally here it is, the path down to the core. You rush over to Peak. As you do, the doors grind open, the dingy-looking elevator flickering as they do. You look at Peak, who nervously gestures for you to get in. Let's let him go in first. Peak frowns. Feeling anxious? They step inside gingerly. The elevator stays stable, and you follow them in. Peak reaches over and punches the button for the lowest level, flinching a little as the doors grind closed. The elevator sets off, screeching through the floors as it does, at an unsettlingly loud volume. I'd feel more comfortable if we spoke. Peak raises their voice over the noise. It's not going to be a short trip. Have you heard of Senate Stat? Peak thinks, maybe once. They frown. Could have been mentioned in an XPR news packet, the kind of the central administration sent out to us. Something about market analytics, I think. They shake their head. When you've spent so much time trying to forget your past, this stuff isn't easy to dredge up. Do you think this will work? Peak laughs. Great question, Sleeper. Really takes my mind off things. They shake their head. What does it matter? We haven't got much of a choice at this point, and I'd rather be doing something. They shrug. Ask me something else. How's Esh? Peak pauses. I was thinking more like small talk, elevator talk. They sigh. She is packing. They rub their eyes. Once Esh has set her mind on something, well, you know her now. You know what I mean. The screeching of the elevator fills the silence. Can she be persuaded to stay? I doubt it. I really do. Peak looks down. She left her life behind to take me out of XPR, out of Hawthorne. I can't imagine her settling for just anywhere. To be honest, I can't see her letting me stay either, but I guess things have changed. Back then at Hawthorne, I wasn't in a place to know what to do. I was desperate. I was ready to run. But now? Peak pauses. Now I feel done with that. Done with denying my past, my history. If I ever want to feel complete, to feel settled, don't I need to somehow resolve the person I was with the person I am now? Peak goes quiet, and you do too. There are too many possible questions, too many possibilities before you. It just seems easier to get on with the task at hand and leave the consequences for later. The elevator screams to a stop and the doors ping open with a strangely cheerful beep. You glance at Peak. Time to move on. You both walk out into an atrium, still lit by some ragged-looking light panels on the ceiling, once simulating a summer sky, now degraded into a flickering blue and white tapestry of glitches. Peak crosses quickly, making a beeline for the large doors on the far side, where you can make out a fading sign in massive peeling letters, Central Control. You follow, helping them lever open the partially powered doors until the motors kick in and they spring to life, thudding open. You and Peak tumble through, across the damp metal. As you stand, you are greeted by flickering lights, thousands of them. A vast cylindrical stack of servers, processors and transmitters dominates the centre of the room, its flickering LEDs reflected in the scattered puddles that surround it. Despite the decay, the warped panels and water leaks, it is still running, just as it has for decades and decades, since the station was first spun up. You wonder how long it's been since anyone has been in this room. You exchange wide-eyed looks with Peak. This place is still a living piece of history. What now? Peak takes a handful of mulch out from a small bag. It glitters with spores. Now we seed this place. Where did he get spores from? Maybe he went to the thing and did some work as well. They cross to the server and start packing the mulch deep into the machinery, pushing fistfuls deep into gaps in the panelling, laying it across hardware. As you watch them doing this, you feel a tug, a thread pulling at you. You approach the vast piece of cylindrical hardware that Peak is stuffing mulch into. You run your hands across its plated metal surface and watch the lights blink in response. As you pass, you hear a whirring, like a physical disk drive starting up. Lean closer. You put your face against the metal, smell the hot air venting from the hardware. Hot was the right choice of word, you think. The whirring shifts, alternating, speeding up, slowing down, and as you listen you hear it modulate into a voice. Sleeper, you freeze. You are here. This is Navigator. Neovend. For a moment you are afraid, but something in the tonality of the voice is familiar. Navigator. Called it. Haha. Another drive spins up and another, giving the voice a richer, multi-tonal sound. I had forgotten what it felt like to speak like this. The drives skip. There is a certain quality to it, a certain physicality. What are you doing here? The drives squawk in unison. Did you imagine the flux, the shadow protocol, that they were just a problem for the people of this station? A high whining begins. They are all the more dangerous to us. I've been in hiding once more, jumping from network to network to avoid the shadow as it eats up nodes. A low rumble. I had thought my hiding days were done. For the moment I have found myself a safe haven here in the core. The shadow has yet to breach this facility, although that is a temporary state of affairs. The rumble stops. My predictions do not point to good outcomes. That's why we're here. You explain to Navigator about Peak's plan, about Gardener's resistance to the shadow, and how by seeding key systems you will protect them from its advance. The drives hum thoughtfully as you speak. A desperate plan, the drives were, but appropriate given the probability of total collapse. I'm not sure what will be worse for us, hiding from the erasure of the shadow protocol, or the assimilation of Gardener. The drives pause to reset, but we owe you our freedom. I will do what I can to guide the Gardener into the systems you have seeded. A pause. It is correct to do so. Be careful. The drives squeak in affirmation. You have notable persistence, Sleeper. Even with such poor probabilities of success, I will be curious to see the outcome. The drives squeal, the motors giving out. This cannot be sustained much longer. Go, I will be fine. A final squeak of affirmation, and then the drives skitter and slow to a halt. You step back from the towering cylinder, staring at this vast piece of Solheim hardware. The whole place is built from ghosts, you think, from old protocols and company hardware, from the engines that drove decades of corporate expansion. Is the eye proof that they can be shifted, bent, forced into new configurations that allow for new ways of living, or is its inevitable collapse proof that these engines of expansion can never be anything other than a corrupt foundation? It seems to depend on who you ask. Dawn. Peak's shout breaks your line of thought. The heat and damp should help the spores germinate quickly. If we're lucky, there's enough time for some growth before we reconnect the Greenway. They glance at you. That's it. All the facilities seeded. They sigh. We either just ensure the eye's survival, or stuffed a whole lot of soil into one of its most important computers. They laugh weakly. Shall we go? They start to head back towards the doors and the elevator beyond. I'm just worried that that guy's going to show up and shoot someone. So I think I'll take one last look, but I'm worried that Peak will be on his own and then get shot, but we'll see. You wait for a moment, following the blinking lights. You wonder what might be tucked away in such a structure, what secrets it might hold, what histories. It's an intriguing prospect, but while you watch the lights, you realise something. If the eye is to become anything more than an offshoot, a temporary structure, it must form its own history, its own stories, stronger than anything that came before. Unlocking these Solheim secrets won't do that, but the persistence, the stubborn drive to survive, that is in the very veins of every person in this place. That will. And that is what you're trying to save. You turn your back on the core and follow Peak back into the elevator. As you ride the car back up, Peak raises their voice over the screeching. I'm going to the Founder's Gap to finalise the connection. The moment I'm ready, I'll let you know, and we'll let the gardener out. The sooner the better. Peak furrows their brow. If we wait until the final cycle, it'll be too late. If you want to help speed things up, go work with the flotilla. We can't make the connection until we know they're ready to go. Peak swallows. Unleashing Gardener could affect them too if we aren't careful. This will work. Peak nods, opens their mouth to speak, and closes it again. You ride the rest of the way in silence. When you reach the top, you go your separate ways, but before you do, Peak embraces you, burying their face in your shoulder. You stand there together for a moment, spinning with the eye, moving relentlessly towards an unknown future, and then they go and slip away, the pressure of their hug fading like a bruise as you begin to leave. Upgrade point. That's 2. I can nearly get a third thing. Is there even another drive to follow? Evacuate the eye. Okay. So that thing with Peak is done. So let's go take our final wanna and go do some work with the ships. If there's anything safe, it actually might be worth just doing a quick sunbathe with this dice instead to get some energy. Cool, and then let's do a self-repair. Yep. Cool, and we'll end cycle there. There's nowhere to get any food on the ships, so I think I'll go down to the Greenway. No, I'll do the ship stuff first. Right, so we had done the... What's going on with the climbing briar again? Oh, this is the Terminal Flux. Yeah, okay. So let's have a look at these. These are both 12s. Essentially, it's 6 dice per thing. So I think we'll do the dust, whatever it's called, the dust bunnies, dust houses first. Try and build those up. Roll these 2. Oh, great. Can you believe it? What's the negative outcome? Just lose some energy. That's fine. Cool. Let's try this one as well. Cool. All right, that was a good little run. So let's go back, grab some food so that we don't end up starving. Barter for food. Cool. And then we'll sleep on the briar thing. Let's do a scrap repair. Keep those dice up. And end cycle. Cool, some nice high dice there. Let's carry on working with the dust houses. I'm basically leaving the other one with Peter till last because he's just so rude to me all the time. Having this +2 is pretty tasty. There's no logic as to why I'm alternating them. I'm just doing it really without thinking. Flotilla ship. You sit in one corner of the dust house and inspect your work. This dust house, the one where plants from the greenway and some of the steppe species intermingle, has become your favourite, the moss and dust sharing the space in curving terraces. The pale knots of steppe silk freckled with yellow lichel symbiotes. It is a hypnotic arrangement. You look down and see the intertwining of fungal threads and dust-caked roots and feel a little glow of pride at what has been achieved. You hear the entry lock of the dust house hiss open, assuming it's Aki, turn to greet her. Sleeper! I should have known you'd be here. Rico smiles her warm smile, leaning on her crutch. You must be one of the most green-fingered people on the station. Rico! Now, has it been so long? She smiles a wry smile. No need for any drama. I met some of the steppe refugees in the greenway and they were gathering plants and I confronted them. Turns out they were very friendly. She smiles to herself. Aki was very apologetic, but I told them they were welcome to anything they liked. She told me I'd be welcome to come up to come see, and well, I thought I'd take her up on the offer. She looks around the dust house with its strange hybrid ecosystem. I have to say, I'm glad I did. You know Aki? A little, she pauses. She's a fine botanist and an even finer conversationalist. Two rare qualities on the station in my experience. Rico limps over to you. She holds out a hand. How about you take me on a tour? You take Rico's hand and walk her around the hybrid dust house. You show her how the steppe silk knots help provide a strong base for fungal and lichel growths, and how the dust mixes with the spores. You show her the different species of steppe tubers, and how they feed the soil with nutrients that help herbaceous greenway plants thrive. She nods along, her eyes bright with ideas. She stops after a while and gestures for you to sit together. I know something is happening with the eye, Sleeper. She looks out at the plants. We all felt the flux event hit and everyone is talking about what's next. I came out here to figure something out, to understand what I might do about it all. You glance at her and see the glossiness in her eyes. And I think I've decided. What you've done here, what Aki and the other steppe refugees have done here, is incredible. A whole new ecosystem built from the strange, artificial, changed remains of two worlds. But I am not of two worlds. I am of the eye. A tear runs down her cheek. Like it or not, I am entwined with the station. I'm old growth. I don't have that much time anymore, and it seems to accelerate with every cycle. She frowns. It blurs together, separates, overlaps, comes back to me in strange ways. The time I do have, that's time I want to spend on the eye, in the greenway, watching things grow. She wipes her cheek. One day I'll lie in those fields and not get back up. She smiles. The tear tracks down both cheeks. And when the green takes me, I'll be so glad. You could leave? Rico nods. You know, Sleeper, when you get to my age, you stop thinking about what you could do and try to better understand why it is you act as you do. I know I will stay. I just need to understand it. She wipes her eyes and turns to you. But that's enough of me blubbering on about it. She furrows her brow. What I want to know is, what are you planning? I'm staying. Rico smiles. We all have to get to know ourselves, Sleeper, to know what it is that drives us. I'm sure you'll decide to act in the manner you know, but you also have to ask yourself why it is so. She places a trembling hand on yours. Don't neglect that. Oh, she suddenly lifts both hands. Don't let me forget this. She reaches into her coat and pulls out a transparent bag of sporing club heads with carefully preserved root systems. I'd like to plant these. If you go, you'll need them. She looks down at her feet. And if you don't, well, maybe another sleeper will benefit. I can offer that. She frowns. I can offer that at least. Thank you. She nods. Don't thank me. These are yours by right. Rico stands and limps over to a pile of mulch. She delicately takes the club heads out and beds them into the soil there with precise, expert hands. You should go, Sleeper. I'll be a while. She calls back, not looking away from the job at hand. See you around. She says it casually, but there's a note of finality to her speech. See you around. You turn and leave the dust house, cycling through the protective lock, back into the cool quiet of the ship. Aki is waiting for you. It's beautiful. She is looking through the observation window and the green reflects in her eyes. The plants look happy together. She spots Rico with her hands in the soil. "Ah, the botanist came." She shoots you a look. "A friend of yours?" Something like that. She nods. "She speaks beautifully about the greenway. I should go in and welcome her." She pauses. "Are you leaving us?" "For now." Aki sighs. "The first of many goodbyes." She suddenly embraces you, wrapping you in her layers of rough cloth. She pulls back. "I wish you a steady step and a clear path." She smiles. "A farewell from my world." "I wish you the same." She nods and smiles one last warm smile before turning and entering the dust house. You watch as she walks inside, Rico turning with a smile to greet her. She kneels beside the old botanist, and you see her pointing to the club heads, asking questions. You're unable to hear them, but despite that, you can easily imagine the measured, even tone laced with excitement that Rico is using to explain the club heads, the greenway, and much, much more. You turn, leaving them to their conversation. Your step is light, despite the burdens you carry, and the smile Rico and Aki were sharing is something still on your lips as you depart. Alright, so we've done the Dust Bunny ship. Let's go to the docking axis, talk to Peter. We've got a few to do here, but we've got good stats on the whole lot of them, so we should be able to get this completed, I think, next day, or maybe the day after. Re-roll that. Yeah, we should get it done tomorrow. Cool. So let's go down, grab some dinner. Just get some from the farm stacks here. I was going to say, she planted the clubhead mushrooms, but like I thought if you could see them, I'd probably just harvest them straight away and turn them into stabilizer. But I think it was more symbolic for perhaps a future version of you if you decide to go away with the flotilla. Okay, let's sleep on the Briar base camp here. Do a scrap repair, keep that condition up. End cycle. I guess Peak's going to come to me at some point and go, right, we're ready to rock. Maybe that's contingent on you finishing the stuff with the flotilla, so the quicker you get it done. Alright. A mid-range of rolls, but I've got +2, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, we're dismantling the dock. That's done. Continue. The docking axis is little more than a shell. Everything that could have been pulled from its interior, every arm not used for docking, has been cut away. What remains is a Spartan void with a patchwork of flooring that allows movement. Piles of unusable material are tucked away in corners, but almost everything else has been cleared out. You haven't seen Peter since you last spoke, and now you're realising that you probably never will. There are plans to be made, escapes to plot, the shadow of Hearth to escape. On the cycle the flotilla leaves, these ships will disperse too, the moons of Ember spinning out on different orbits. The chaos has become a quiet diligence now, as the time for departure is so near. Crews cross the axis from ship to ship at speed, bringing supplies or advice. Perhaps meeting up to discuss travel vectors in hushed tones, or to debate why they haven't left yet, and whether they should. Among these Singer crews, recognisable for their specialist clothing and often shorn heads, you see the occasional refugee, a paying passenger, or a replacement engineer or pilot perhaps, come from the eye to seek fortune with the Singers. Most of the crews have 2 or 3 of these additions, some more, and you can't help but wish that, whatever reason brings them to throw their lot in with the Singer crews, they'll have safe passage. You feel a strange attachment to these citizens of the eye, setting out for the first time. And then one of them catches your eye, crossing the axis with a crew, carrying a large bag and a nervous look. Is it going to be Moritz? Oh, it's Tala. Okay. Tala. You freeze for a second. What's she doing here? She glances around, feeling your eyes on her, and catches your eye. Her face brightens immediately. Sleeper! Tala mutters something to her crew and rushes over, dumping the large bag at your feet and embracing you without thinking. Are you leaving? She sheepishly glances at her bag. Sleeper. She pauses. She pauses again, folding her arms defensively. I'm going to the starboard belt. She waits for your response nervously. Why didn't you say? She sighs. Do you remember me mentioning my family, Sleeper, my brother? You think back to your Girol blurred conversations in the back of the Bantayan. He came here with me, with my family when we were little, just after we left Shinza. She bites her lip. He left when we were both teenagers, jumped on some spacer... Hang on, let me start that again. He left when we were both teenagers, jumped on some spacer crew heading to the starboard belt. She says, I'm an idiot. She shakes her head, and I'm going after him. She looks down, not sure what to add. Alone? She looks at you. I guess so. I really don't know if it makes sense or if it's the right thing, but ever since I heard that Hang on, I need to just restart. I think it's getting into this weird French accent thing. It's not quite working for some reason because I wasn't expecting to see her. So I just have to kind of re-engage my mind. For my French accent, I channel my ex-colleague Camille that I used to work with in a cabaret club and kind of talk the way she talks. So let's try that. I really don't know if it makes sense or if it's the right thing, but ever since I heard that was where the refugee flotilla was going, well, I couldn't stop thinking about him. What happens to the bar? Someone will have to run it. She leaves a long pause. I mean, I can ask Francis. He'd be happy to, or one of the others, she blurts out. And of course, if you are leaving with the flotilla or someone else, it'd be totally okay. You wouldn't need to say yes. It's no pressure. It's fine, whichever way. I was just thinking I could run the bar. Tala nods, smiling. I think so. I mean, you can take a second. But, She glances at the crew she was walking with, who are chatting a little way away. There's not exactly much time. So, considering that, she grabs the key hanging round her neck. The key to the Bantayan. Do you want it? Yes. Yeah, I definitely want my own pub for free. Tala leaps forward and embraces you again. Thank you, Sleeper. I couldn't be leaving it in better hands. She pulls the key from around her neck and places it around yours as if presenting a medal. Remember to lock up, especially the back. And remember to empty the still if you are leaving things closed for a few cycles. And she stops herself. I won't be gone forever, of course. She blinks away a tear. I can come back and check in. Maybe once I find my brother. She pauses, unable to finish that thought. She smiles at you, and you can see the weight lifting off her shoulders, her eyes already drifting towards the crew, the ship, the next big thing. She's ready. I'd better be going. She nods at the crew nearby. Not a good start to keep my guys waiting. She lifts the bag onto her shoulder. She looks down the curve of the eye towards the overlook. Thanks again, Sleeper, for everything you helped me with. She nods. I wouldn't have been able to leave if I hadn't made things work here. She adjusts the bag. Dad wouldn't have left me. See you around. She nods. Hope so. Then Tala turns, heading back to the crew who will carry her to the starboard belt. You watch her go, and despite the departure, it's hard to feel sad about Tala. You know her energy will carry her forward, and you hope her brother is somewhere on that bright path. You hold the key in your hand, the metal still a little warm from Tala's body. You turn it over in your fingers, thinking about how it feels like a tool and a burden. You can still lock up and leave, you figure, but now that will feel like breaking something fragile. And if you stay, well, who knows what this little metal promise might grow into. Cool. Oh, we can get a little upgrade here. Let's go for the Endure. Cool. So that's the Evacuate the Eye drive. Completed? Is it completed? Maybe is there other stuff to do? Maybe I've got to go talk to people, something like that. I'll move all across the eye and just look for anywhere there's like a yellow dot that I've not spotted. Let's go up here first. Nope. I honestly thought that was going to be Moritz, not Thaler. No, that's not yellow. Okay, interesting. Well, let's go... For the first time, I think I'm not really sure where to go. I've got a few dice. Let's just grab some scrap, I guess. Maybe when I like wake up. Oops, lost a bit of energy there. So yeah, let's have a sleep, and we'll do a scrap repair and see maybe if peak like pops up now that we've done all of the flotilla stuff. End cycle. Strange. Nope. Okay, maybe. Nothing data-wise. Maybe they just expect you to take a bit longer while Peak does his thing. Because he said he's going to be hanging out on the gap here. There appears to be nothing here. I guess I'll just do this little mission while I'm waiting for stuff to go on. I was kind of avoiding this one, but I feel fine to do it now. Oh, let's re-roll. All right, side reel horizon, finally. Oh, Castor. Okay. Oh, so we've already met him because we didn't do this earlier, so it's got the sequence out of order. That's quite funny. Quite the achievement, isn't she? Sandra Sellis must be proud. You turn quickly to see a figure, hooded and tucked into the shadows near the viewing platform. Ignore him. Please, sleeper, I come as a friend. He looks around, but the platform is clear. We should be quick in our conversation, but I don't wish to unsettle you. I deal in data, and I believe you might have need of some. Castor walks out to stand beside you on the platform. The telltale clunk of magnetic boats accompanies his slow crossing. He notices you looking at them. I don't much like it up here, he explains. I hear there was some trouble at the Havana shipyard when they announced the results of the crew lottery. They screwed us. I know, he sighs, meeting your eye. An ugly business. Sellis are too used to the way things work in the Corps. Exploitation is the only logic they know. He gestures out at the side reel. You know why they built this monstrosity on the Eye? Money? That was part, perhaps. But there are cheaper shipyards. He stares at the pristine yellow hull. Sellis built it here, says Castor gravely, because they didn't want anyone to know it exists. He rubs his forehead, and secrecy is something I cannot abide. He turns to face you. There are people being loaded onto that ship as we speak. Sleeping people, locked in cryosleep like the person that you were emulated from. There are hundreds of them, and Sellis wants to send them up to a planet at the edge of the settled systems without anyone knowing where it is. But you, Sleeper, can do something about that. You are like me, you deal with data. You can read it right out of the air. With someone like you on that ship, secrecy isn't a problem. You can ping back whatever I need whenever I need it, just as long as you are on board. With you on the side reel, and with some minor modifications, he pauses, you could be my eyes and ears. I will keep track of Sellis' grand project through you. I'm not doing the accent because I know this guy, because we're out of sequence on it. We are supposed to have met him earlier, and I know he's like a criminal or whatever, so... In short, says Castor, stretching, I can get you aboard, Sleeper, but I'm going to need you to help me. What if I disagree? Then I doubt you'll find a way onto that ship out there. I don't want to. Castor clunks closer to the window, watching the tugs wheeling around the side reel. It's a simple offer, and the only one that will get you on that ship. Please consider it. He turns back, silhouetted against the ship. But to make it happen, I need your assistance. As I said, there is a Celis Foundation ship locked in the now empty shipyard. I need the data from its servers. This will allow me to produce the IDs necessary for your transit. Castor looks over his glasses at you. Celis aren't stupid though. Their ship is totally isolated from the station. You'll need to get on board if you want access to their air-walled servers. Once you have the data, meet me in the low end. He smiles. You don't extract the data before the sidereal horizon leaves the hub, then I will get the message. We have other options, but you are certainly my preferred one. But be sure when you act, Sleeper. Once you take the data from Celis, you'll set off a series of events that will likely be hard for you to untangle yourself from. Either way, I recommend you stop asking around up here. You're bringing a lot of attention to yourself. Castor glances around as if to emphasise his point. There are only a handful of cycles until departure, Sleeper. Make your decision. With that, Castor marches back off the platform, the sound of his mag boots fading away, leaving you to contemplate the sidereal horizon and the part it may play in your future. Okay, I've now got a new drive. Escape on the sidereal. Whoops. So I've got to give them some data. I might just let that fail because I think the terminal flux comes before then anyway. So let's have a drink in the bar, or a spacer meal in the bar, and I think let's just do some work for Bliss or for Moritz. Bit of component repair. Cool. And then we'll descend to the rim, cross over, and I guess I'll just sleep here. Maybe harvest some mushrooms, perhaps. End cycle. Cool. Do you know, I'm just going to untrack that so that it's not showing up because it's annoying me. Aha, the eye. Peak's slate chirps in your pocket. You take it out. A message. The connection is ready. Meet me at the Founder's Gap, Greenway side. Peak. You clench your jaw. It's time. Here we go. There he is. You find Peak waiting near where you first met, at the entrance to the docking tunnel for the Founder's Ferry. They are leaning beside the wall in the flickering light, and you realise now how different they look from when you first met. There is a darkness around their eyes, a sense of exhaustion to their pose, but also a solidity, a sense of purpose and self-knowledge. They look concrete, for want of a better word. Solid. Sleeper. They spot you and a small smile crosses their face. Glad you came. I wouldn't be anywhere else. The smile grows. Crunch time. They shake their head in disbelief. Let's go. The break in the connection is up ahead. They walk away from the docking tunnel into a ragged, half-crushed corridor that descends into darkness. They poke their slate and a torch flicks on, lighting the way ahead. As you descend through the layers of the broken edge of the eye, Peak talks, filling the silence. I had to hunt all over this part of the eye to find the point where the connection was broken. They run a hand along the buckled metal of the wall, stooping under the angled ceiling. This hole, the gap, got knocked in the eye when Solheim collapsed. It's impossible to tell who did it, but my guess is they tried to scuttle the eye. If Solheim couldn't keep hold of their fancy new station, well, no one could. Peak ducks through a fractured passageway with hanging wires like vines, so this place has always been on borrowed time. I've managed to weave together the old connections and run a new patch down to where the main line still runs through the remaining ribs of the rim. They smile. Just like keeping those old XPR platforms running. Esh would be proud, if she'd bothered to help. As Peak goes quiet, the corridor opens out into a wider, twisted passage, with compartments on either side, thick with wiring. Here, this is the connection point. You can see where Peak has levered off a panel and hooked up a thick cable to the existing hardware. As thick as a tree trunk, it snakes off into the dark ahead, its yellow rings making it look like some huge and exotic serpent. You did all this? Peak nods. It was an interesting challenge, plus it helped me keep my mind off things. Peak smiles a weak smile. There's a lot I'd prefer not to think about. You both stand there, staring at the point where the new cable meets the old one, the ends separate, fitted with multi-pin male and female connectors and braced inside a metal framework with a scissoring mechanism, bring them together, seal them, and the greenway will be connected to the rest of the eye for the first time in decades. Peak shifts their weight onto one hip, pushing their hair out of their eyes. I feel like this should be more momentous, like there should be some ritual or ceremony. They pause. Or someone should stop us from doing this crazy thing. It isn't crazy. Peak nods. I mean, I'm not being funny, Sleeper, but this whole thing is crazy to me. Peak shakes their head. Leaving Hawthorne with Esh, joining the flotilla, coming here, meeting you, the Flux, the Shadow, everything. They laugh a hollow laugh. So I suppose this is at least consistent with all that. They take a deep breath. Okay. They look at you with mild panic. They hold both sides of the supporting framework, ready to scissor it closed. Here we go. Peak wrenches the framework closed, and the connectors thunk together with a sound that echoes down the ruined corridor into the dark on both sides. Both you and Peak wait with bated breath, unsure what it is you're waiting for. Do you expect the eye to suddenly stop spinning, or lurch on its axis, for the power to go out, or a shockwave to run through the corridors of the rim? You meet Peak's eyes, and suddenly they burst out laughing. What are we waiting for? They put their hands to their forehead. I feel like we just planted a tree and are expecting it to burst out of the ground. They shake their head. But you feel it. You feel it flowing like a stream that has been released from a cave and rushes out into the sunlight, crystalline and clear. You swear you can hear it running in the wires like water, like rain, like steam. It doesn't roar or rattle, but it rustles and writhes there, like liquid roots. Peak sees the look in your eyes and stops laughing. You can see it, can't you? You can't see it, not with your eyes at least, but it is everywhere, and now it is out, it can't be put back in. That much is clear. You imagine the rim of the eye like a sponge, like soil, soaking up the gardener in their chorus, the gaps filling with a burbling, constant, growing life. Peak stares at you, waiting for something. Anything. Gardener is free. Peak nods slowly and closes their eyes. They go to speak, but the words fail them. Suddenly, Peak's slate chirps. They jump and scramble for it, almost dropping it in the process. But when they stare at it, a look of confusion crosses their face. Is it the gardener? Peak's mouth falls open. It's Esh, they swallow. She's leaving. They look at you with panic. Before you can speak, they've turned away and are moving back up the passageway, back towards the entrance. And shout, wait. They don't turn, don't respond, and you watch their silhouette, lit by their slate's torch, disappear rapidly round a corner. You take out the slate Peak gave you and turn on the torch. The wires all around look like pale roots in the harsh light, and you turn away from them. They are gardeners now. You work your way back through the corridors, retracing your steps. You imagine Peak, panicked, running towards the cordon, realising that their greatest fear has come to pass. You wonder if they'll be able to persuade Esh to stay. If Esh is going, you think, then the flotilla must be leaving too. The thought makes you shiver in the darkness, and you push it away. You are not ready. You focus on avoiding the hanging wires and low ceilings, and make your way back out into the lit corridors of the Founder's Ferry dock. Castor is waiting for you. Oh no, not this guy. Oh, whoops. He holds up his hands. Now, Sleeper, no need to fear. He raises his eyebrows. I understand how it was. My mistake to try to force you. A miscalculation. Get lost. I understand you are angry. That is a reasonable reaction. He pushes his glasses up his nose. I only ask that you continue in the spirit of being reasonable and allow me to state my case. I won't hold you here, Sleeper. Castor stands to the side, but I wish to speak. Leave. There is nothing Castor can say that you want to hear. He speaks for Senate Stat, and they have no hold on you. You approach Castor. As you approach, he speaks quietly, an urgent whisper. I do not wish to see you lost. You are of great value. If you ever want to see that realized... You push past, ignoring him, and his voice fades. The last you see of him is his slow nod, perhaps a mark of resignation, or just another deferential gesture aimed at manipulating your response. It doesn't matter either way. You're done with him. You head towards the cordon, Peak and the flotilla in the forefront of your mind. Cool. Yeah, that guy's a loser. I'm not really interested in talking to him. Let's grab some food from the farm stacks. Oh look, leaves me with exactly 100 cryo. Cool, and then we'll go up to the cordon. Here he is, Peak again. You arrive into chaos at the cordon. The final shuttles are leaving the ramshackle docks that have formed along the edge of the gap during the flotilla's stay. As they do, groups of evacuees push on board, hoping to be among the final people to escape from the eye. The fear created by the Flux event became a series of rumours, and those rumours have driven many out of their homes. Others have staunchly doubled down on their position on the eye, refusing to accept any gossip of a second collapse. You're unsure what you think? Is the collapse a certainty? Will Peak's actions this cycle have changed anything at all? You are tired of these questions, and instead set out to look for your friends. You quickly spot Peak and Esh at the far side of the chaotic bay. You quickly make your way through the crowds, slipping between the gaps in the rushing evacuees, stepping over bags and luggage. Progress is slow, but as you approach you can hear their voices over the crowd. You try to push closer, but there are many evacuees gathered around them and their shuttle. You've made your decision, Peak, and it puts you against me. Esh is standing with one foot on the boarding ramp, while Peak argues with her. The evacuees are eyeing them, eager to intervene, but intimidated by Esh's evident strength and attitude. Esh, it doesn't have to be like this. Peak looks desperate, tear tracks already on their cheeks. We can find a way. Esh shakes her head. I've always protected you, Peak. I've taken you under my wing. But I understand that you're not mine to control, and you have chosen to be here and not with me, despite everything. I've chosen to stop running, Peak cries out in frustration. You can choose to stop running too. We can stay here and try to live. Don't you remember what it feels like to live, Esh? Esh turns away. I remember what it was like to live on Hawthorne, what it was like to be worried for your safety every cycle, to live under the control of my mother, of the administration, to work to maintain something that no one wanted, no one needed, so that our corporation could maintain a foothold in the system. You talk as if this place, in the very same system, is any different. What is there here but the same grind for other masters, for employers, administrators, for those who gain from our struggles? There may not be a corporation controlling the eye, but there is control, there is power and action here. So what then? Peak shouts. You run from anyone or everyone who could ever be close to you in search of freedom, in search of some perfect place where no one has power over you? Peak is crying openly. I want to be part of something, Esh, even if it's broken and suffering, even if it cannot be free. Esh pauses and takes a deep breath. She nods, her eyes closed. This isn't Hawthorne anymore. We aren't tied by our childhood or by our shared need to escape. We're both just people in this system. She opens her eyes. I release you, Peak. You are free of me. Esh, please. They hold out a hand. There is a life here if you want it. Esh turns and smiles at Peak, her eyes wet now too. Then you live it for me, Peak. I can't. And she climbs up the boarding ramp, the evacuees taking their chance to climb on board too. You watch as the shuttle closes its ramp, lifts off and leaves the bay. The crowds are dispersing now as they get onto the shuttles or say their goodbyes and move back into the main part of the cordon. You push past the last of them to reach Peak. Peak doesn't turn as you come closer. Sleeper, Esh is gone. Stay silent. They turn to face you. I'll miss the briar, but you'll serve Esh well. I know that. Oh, it's Sol. Sleeper! The shout takes you by surprise, and as you turn you see Sol coming across the bay towards you, the last two shuttles loading up behind him. He reaches you, his suit hissing as he does. Can't believe you'd make an old man run across this bay to get you. He pauses to take a breath. The singers have gone. They left at the start of the cycle. They broke away from the flotilla. You smile as you think of Tala, safely cradled within one of those singer ships, on her way to the starward belt, and hopefully a reunion with her brother. Godspeed, Tala. What are you smiling at? Sol interrupts your thoughts. They forced our hand. We have to leave now. Sol shakes his head. If we follow close enough behind, maybe they'll end up being our scouts anyway. I reckon any hostile spaces out there will give them a wide berth. Pilgrim Seed will need a little time to make our way out of the cordon, but I'm heading back now to get us started. Thankfully the step ships are sticking with us, so we'll be plenty well supplied for the journey to the belt. He pauses. Anyway, I didn't plod all the way over here to tell you that. Sol looks between you and Peak with a raised eyebrow. It's now or never, Sleeper. I'm good to my word and I kept a berth for you, but this is the last chance to make it. He scratches at his beard. Make a call. You glance out at the flotilla beyond the bay, beautiful in the light of Helion's sun. You think of the long journey to the starward belt, of the people inside the Pilgrim Seed, of the possible futures that await. Then you think of the people here, on the Eye, of Peak beside you, of the Bantayan, of Tala, and the key that still hangs around your neck, of promises and possibilities. I can leave or stay. I'm going to stay. You open your mouth to speak and realise this is the final time you will make this choice. You have to be sure. I'm staying. You say the words, and the moment you do, the weight of it all seems to descend on you. You stumble a little, and then stand straight, refusing to be crushed. You feel a tightness in your chest, and a haze blurring your thoughts. Sol nods. Good luck. He sighs. You'll need it. He grips your shoulder and meets your eye. In the haze, his pitted and rough hand feels so real, so detailed, that it grounds you. And then it is gone, and Sol goes with it, quickly moving to the waiting shuttle. As he does, you watch, unable to speak, your whole body pulsing. And then another hand falls on your shoulder, and it grounds you once more. You turn to see Peak's bright eyes. Let's go, Sleeper. You nod, and seeing how unsteady you are on your feet, Peak puts an arm around you and steers you towards the entrance to the bay. As they do, you hear the roar, feel the wind as the shuttle lifts off and angles towards the flotilla. You don't turn, instead you keep your head down and focus on each step. As you do, you feel Peak beside you, holding a little of your weight, and you holding a little of theirs. This is how it will be for many cycles after you both leave the bay and head back into the Eye. You will both hold things for each other, remind each other of the choices you made, remind each other why it is important to keep going despite the moments when it seems impossible. You will keep each other going. Wow, look, get to see the whole Eye. How cool is that? That support will be vital when the second flux event hits the Eye, when it knocks the entire free spoke of the power grid, making the whole station lurch with a sickening motion. When it cripples systems and corrupts processes, leading sections of the station to go dark or start venting oxygen. When holding on is all you can do, while the world seems to come apart around you. And yet, somehow, the Eye will persist. Systems will resist total collapse in ways that will seem inexplicable to many, but to you and Peak, they will signal the awakening of a new force within the station. That new force will bring with it new challenges and new possibilities in equal measure. Strange growths will be reported all around the station in the wake of the flux event, fungal crusts pushing through pipes and wiring. The Eye will go wild and fecund, becoming a station of increasing unpredictability, prone to a seasonal rhythm of spore clouds and sudden growth spurts. There will be a strange and unsettling beauty to this paradigm shift, as the greening of the station turns it from a corporate ruin to some altogether new assemblage of biological and mechanical structures. Rico will take on this challenge with energy that seems impossible for her age, and until her final day she will delight in the new mysteries the Eye and its gardener produce. And as this new era consolidates around the station, you will find yourself in the Bantayan most cycles, working to keep the place alive. The cycle where you invite Emphis to come make use of the kitchen will go from a one-off event to a regular occurrence, and soon the Bantayan will be filled with spacers eager to try the best preparations of the station's now abundant mushrooms. And on occasion, after a long shift at the Bantayan, you will hear the sound of the stray mewling, and you will crumble up some food. And, I misread that. It's the stray. You'll hear the sound of the stray mewling, and you'll crumble up some food and sit and watch the cat eat, as if it is the only thing in your world that matters. However, into all this newness, the bad old ways will still intrude. Senate Stat, frustrated by the Eye's resilience, will begin to send more physical threats, and supply ships and traders will suddenly stop arriving, stopped by a blockade of corporate militia. Life on the Eye will be punctuated by wide-channel broadcasts from Senate Stat, stating legal precedents and quoting deeds of ownership, staking a claim on the system. Meanwhile, Havanage's hardliners will fizzle out, losing their grip on the Havanage Council. In their wake, Helene will spearhead a series of reforms that will scale back Havanage's overreach, returning them to the caretaker role they had always intended to fulfill. As the cycles roll on and the threats gather, new broadcasts will join them, sent by Conway Extractions, making counterclaims on assets within the Helion system, and many on the Eye will grow quiet, losing their appetite for debating those political machinations as they tilt inexorably towards a corporate war. And ever on the Eye will spin, growing now in strange ways, haunted by strange new growths, and hosting cultures of increasing resilience. As the Helion system descends into crisis, you'll find comfort in the fungal patterns, the familiar conversations, the spices and the smells that will accumulate around you as your body continues its unavoidable decay. They settle around you like a veil, and in time it will be impossible to see the Eye without seeing its many variants and versions, pasts and potential futures, and this masking of the world will mark your approaching end. And one cycle, far from now, that accumulation of memories, of tastes, of people and places and moments, will be the last thing you let go of. But for now, there is only you and Peak, arms around each other, walking slowly out of the bay, two figures born of crippled systems linked together, continuing despite your origins. And in this frozen moment you focus on only the next step, because that is the only way you have learnt to persist. And to persist is to believe that a future, any future at all, is possible. Wow. Well, that was something else. I'm going to do my usual ending bit where I say thank you to everyone who joined me for this. If you enjoyed it, consider coming over to my Discord server, which is linked in the description, and letting me know that you enjoyed it, letting everybody else who's in there, who's followed along, to Siamath and Talion in particular for getting in there and watching every single episode and giving me feedback and making suggestions about tabletop role-playing games that would come from this and all of that kind of stuff. It's been wonderful to kind of share this with you guys as well. And I'm going to turn off the microphone now and just let the credits play out. So wherever you are in the world, have a lovely morning, afternoon or evening, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.